Resilient traitor. Independent war criminal. Resourceful threat to the USA. Unbreakable whistleblower. Fragile faggot. Tortured. Dehumanized. I was kicked out of my home and I once lost my job. The world is not moving fast enough for us at home, at work, or the battlefield. I've been living a double life. I can't make a statement and I don't want to be caught in an act. I hope the public support for me changes. Bradley Manning, aged 20, has joined the US Army in the hope that 4 years of service in the Army and he will be able to come out of that and go to the university that he wants to go to. And so, basic training begins. And, well, it begins and it doesn't go very well. As I said before, Bradley's small. At age 20, he's not really going to get much taller. He's only about 5'2". He's very thin, and physically he is very, very weak. And so when he goes through all of those initial army training and all the physical endurance stuff, he just doesn't really cope with it very well. He's always the slowest, he's always the last to catch on to what he should be doing and how he should be doing it, and he's just got no strength. And I think I would, do you know what, I'd love to join the army just for that bit of it, so that I could be like, ooh, look at me, I'm getting really fit, doing my my exercises. I think I'd be brilliant at that. I'd be like, give me the tightest pair of army trousers you have, and give me a cheeky beret. I will put it on and I'll be like, ooh yeah, doing the army. I'm sure I'm glamorising it and it's not actually as glamorous as that. But I mean, in my head I'd be doing it all to like a Rihanna song. You know what I mean? It would be great. I'd be having a lovely time in my life. Anyway, Bradley is, in all seriousness, not coping. There's an army supervisor who remembers Bradley's training, and he says, the kid was barely 5 foot. He was a runt. So, we picked on him. He's crazy. So, we picked on him. He's a faggot. So, we picked on him. This guy took it from every side. He could never please anyone. Now, was it new for Bradley to be in a position where he was being screamed at, where he was being bullied and shouted at? No, of course it wasn't. He'd lived in volatile situations. So what did Bradley do when that happened, when he was being shouted at? Well, he shouted back. And you just don't do that in the army. It's about discipline. It's about listening. It's about respecting people above you. Did Bradley adhere to any of that? No, did he fuck? Because Bradley, I mean, I hope you're learning this as we talk through the story, and I hope that I'm conveying it properly. Bradley, I know we're going to go back to those words from earlier on where it's like arrogant, and, you know, people would say, oh, Bradley always thought he was better than everybody else. I just think within the army situation, he was just a bit like, I'm not going to take that. I'm just not going to take someone shouting in my face. And if they do, I'll shout back. But it's obviously, as we know, a part of the army training is that you learn that discipline. You learn to respect your superiors and the person above, and you all have a rank, and you respect this person and then that person, and that's where you are within the situation. It just feels like Bradley was like, no, I'm not playing that game. I'm just not gonna play that game. Someone who trained alongside Bradley said Bradley would literally just scream back in the drill sergeant's face to the point where the nickname for Bradley became General Manning, because he just liked to shout back at people. So during his time in army training, Bradley, he went to his army supervisor in complete confidence, and he spoke about his feelings. He said, I want to be a woman. I've never felt right in my own body. I don't think I was meant to be born a man. And he basically gets told this: man up. Man up. Get on with your basic training and learn to be a man. Stop with this nonsense about feeling like a woman. Shut up and just get on with being a soldier in the army. Oh well done. Well done, everyone. Round of applause, everyone, in that situation. Well done, you've all done very well. Be proud of yourself. Fucking hell. So Bradley, it's not going well in the army, and there starts to be discussions at one point about kicking Bradley out of the army. Now he becomes aware of these conversations because sometimes he gets like pulled into meetings where he's told he's not meeting requirements of a new recruit. He doesn't look like he's going to be a very good soldier. Bradley's kind of aware of it, and I think it's this weird point where sort of a bit of him is like, I kind of like the idea that I might be kicked out of the army, because it really is a miserable existence and it doesn't suit him as a person, but also he wants that college education at the end of it. So there's a bit of a battle going on internally, I think, where he's like, I kind of want to stay, but I also, if you kicked me out, maybe that would be alright. Anyway, the army decide they're going to keep Bradley Manning, and what they're going to do is they are going to use his skills in the computer area. They're going to use him for that sort of thing, because he's never going to be great out on the battlefield. He's never going to do that. He's never going to be the kind of soldier that can fight, but he's smart. He's very, very intelligent. So they think, okay, what we'll do is we'll use him in our intelligence part of the army. So he starts to get trained in lots of intelligence, and he comes across like sort of millions and millions of files and videos and documents and lots of things about the US Army. And Bradley is given the privileges to download loads and loads of very, very confidential information. Now obviously when you join the army, they make you sign loads of documents about privacy and not about sharing information, and that's fine. That's understandable. Now Bradley knew these rules inside out, and he agreed to them on paper, but he was still learning to be an intelligence analyst and loving the freedom that he'd been given to access lots of army files. I mean, there's so many things that I would love access to. What would you have access to if you could? What would it be? Would it be something political? Would you pick something political? Would you be like, I'd like to read the emails of, I don't know, Hillary Clinton? Or would you be like, oh, I'd really like to know the ins and outs of that person's life? What would you really like to know if you had the access to it? Do you know what's always interested me? This is going to sound so fucking... it's going to sound so vacuous compared to, you know, we're talking about he's got access to army intelligence. I'm always really interested in, you know, when like big major celebrities have... already I hear myself and it sounds fucking ridiculous. But like major stars, not even just celebrities, right? Forget I said celebrities, right? Forget that. When major stars have relationships with people and then that relationship ends and you know something's gone on, but you never know the details of what that is. And then of course you see things like my favourite magazine, National Enquirer. Fucking love the National Enquirer, buy it every week. But it's bullshit. It's all bullshit, right? You know it's bullshit, right? But I would love to know, I'll give you an example, right? Sorry, I'm wandering off the point here, but I would love to know what actually happened between Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. I would love to know the details of that. But here's what interests me, is what documents have they signed? What's protecting that information? Because those two were in a relationship. You're not telling me that there's not lots of other people around them who also know what went down. So what's protecting those people? Why are they not speaking out about it? And that's just one example. I just think that there's loads and loads and loads of like stuff like that I'm like, oh, I would love to just know the nitty gritty of what actually happened. And like I said, I know it sounds a bit vacuous to be like, oh, I just want it to be about celebrities. I'm not saying that. I just want it to be that. I would love to know about conversations that happened between Obama and Trump. I would kill to know some of the conversations that they had. And people will know the conversations that they had. But why do we not know? So yeah, so there's something for you to think about. This little homework task. It's Extraordinary Stories Podcast homework. Let me know, what would you like to know about? What bit would you like to know that you've never ever ever been told or remains hidden? Anyway, sorry. Wandered off the point. Okay, so Bradley, well, hopefully the next part of the story, it gets a little bit lighter for Bradley. As part of his intelligence analyst training, he gets sent to New York. Now he gets sent there because eventually he's going to be sent to Iraq to work over there with intelligence, but they send him for his training in New York. Now this is the year 2008. And at that time, the big fight in the US Army was with Iraq and Afghanistan. So to work there, Bradley was going to need, you know, a bit more training. So goes to New York and his training starts. Now he's out one evening. He's cutting about New York. He's having himself a lovely time, letting loose, doing what he does, and he meets a guy in a bar called Tyler Watkins. Now they meet in a gay bar. I wanna take you to a gay bar, a gay bar. Remember that song? It was a terrible song. And they hit it off. Bradley and Tyler, they have a drink. They go home to Tyler's house on the first night, and they have themselves some sexy time. Oh yeah. So Bradley and Tyler, they really, really fall for each other. They really fall for each other, and while Bradley is in New York training, before he has to go to Iraq, him and Tyler are spending all the time together. They are grinding hard and they are loving their lives. Now Tyler, he goes to university. It's in Boston he goes to university. It's a bit of a distance from New York to travel to university, but that's just what it is. And so for a while they're just trying to make this kind of work while Bradley's training in New York and Tyler's living there but studying in Boston. Tyler is studying psychology and neuroscience. Get him? Good for him. Now, Tyler has a group of quite interesting friends, and they go by the term hacktivists. It's this kind of trendy term, isn't it? For like people who hack on the internet. Not just for like, journalistic reasons or like... Remember when I did it with the... remember I talked about the Shirley Madison story with the dating profiles that were all hacked? Not that kind of thing. Like, not that kind of level of hacking. I'm talking people who like to hack at the slightly higher level, the hacktivists. So, Tyler, he introduces Bradley to these people, and Bradley is immediately interested. He wants to know more. He wants to understand the world of hacking. And he wants to understand the world of file sharing and freedom of information. One of the core things to understand about Bradley is his desire to tell the truth and to stand up for people feeling like they have no voice in the world. This was so important to him. So he loves meeting these people and getting into the world of who they are. Remember that since a very, very young age, Bradley has been crazy about computers and the power of sharing different files. However, just as he's having a great time in New York with his boyfriend Tyler and meeting the hacktivists, the time comes to be sent to Iraq. Now the army decide that they need to basically take Bradley to Iraq, place him in a quite high profile intelligence role. And this is one of the things I think is so interesting about this story. Bradley had, as I described to you, really, really struggled with basic training as a soldier. And so as a result of that, they moved him into intelligence in the army. But Bradley's not an easy person, and the army just find him very, very difficult. So remember I said there was conversations earlier about kicking him out, getting rid of him, but they didn't. This is a major, major flaw at this point. They basically go, is it a huge risk sending him to Iraq, or should we just get rid of him? And what it comes down to, the decision, the reason to keep Bradley as an intelligence analyst and send him to Iraq is because the US Army don't have enough of them. And that's it. That's the bare bones of it. They don't have enough people who, at this point in 2008, are good enough at doing what Bradley can do. And so they weigh it up and they go, well, here's the thing. He's a fucking risk. He's a potentially a bit of a nutter, is how they see it. They've got all these files on him where they're like, oh, he didn't really do very well at basic training. He's quite aggressive with lots of people. Don't know. But then on the other hand, the other scale says, well, you know what? We don't really have that many people that can actually do his job. So I'll tell you what, let's brush under the carpet that we don't think he's maybe mentally okay to go to Iraq. We'll just send him anyway because we need those people out there. And that's a major, major turning point in this story. Because if somebody had just had clarity on that decision and gone, no, hang on a minute, hang on. Why are we sending someone to Iraq to work within intelligence who we think is a risk, who we think is potentially mentally unstable, who's been aggressive so far, who could barely get through basic training? Why are we sending that person? That's the voice that needed to come in at this point, and it didn't. That voice just didn't arrive, and they went, you know what, we don't really have enough people that can do that job, let's just fire him over to Iraq. So at this time, his relationship with Tyler begins to wind down as Bradley has to get ready to go to Iraq. And sadly, that's actually quite a good thing for Tyler. Tyler will say later, Bradley really changed the minute that he started his training in New York in preparation for Iraq, because he was being exposed to some horrific images of war, and they were changing him. They were changing his view on life. He was coming home and all he could talk about was these horrendous things that he'd seen. These horrific pieces of footage of towns being blown up in Afghanistan and US soldiers shooting hundreds of people dead. And I suppose, here's the thing. I don't work, surprisingly. I don't work in the US intelligence army, but I can only imagine what it must be like if you have 14 hours a day. That's your shift. 14 hours a day where you're watching all of this war footage and you're basically just seeing American soldiers walking into towns, shooting dead the enemy, and I'd say that with, air quotation marks. Or you're watching airstrikes, you're watching bombs, you're watching all of this. It must be so difficult on your mental health. It must just absolutely be a horrific experience, and this is basically what Bradley was going through. He had access now to some of the most horrendous footage of people dying in the US war with Afghanistan and Iraq. And so Tyler will say it just was really changing him as a person. He was coming home and he was just a very different human being. There was a sort of hollow feeling in him was beginning to develop because of what he was seeing. Bradley is also, he's still being bullied within the army. So when he's coming home at night, he's quite often got a black eye or he's covered in bruises all over his body. And Tyler is getting very frustrated and he's like, who's doing this to you? And Bradley can only ever say, the other soldiers. I'm basically a punching bag for other soldiers. That's what I am. They think it's fun to take it out on me. Even though he's working within, the intelligence analyst bit, he's working with computers. These other soldiers still treat Bradley like a punching bag. So they'll kick absolute fuck out of him. They'll knock him about all over the place. And Tyler is saying, you've got to do something. You've got to go and speak to someone. You've got to stand up to them. And Bradley's like, listen, that's great advice, but here's the thing. This entire army consider me to be a joke. They think I'm a joke. I'm there because I can do one thing, and that is I'm really good with this footage. I'm good with computers. I'm good with, systems. I'm good with all of that stuff. They're forever going to treat me as a punching bag because that's what it is, and that's the system I have to just put up with. It's an impossible task for Bradley to be able to stand up to the people who perceive him to be weak. So Bradley goes to Iraq. Now, he gets described by army psychologists in their notes as fragile. They say his mental state is not good. He cries a lot, and the other soldiers are unsympathetic. Bradley will write these words in a diary. This is my problem. I've had signs of it for a very long time. It's caused problems within my family. I thought a career in the military would get rid of it. It's not something I seek out for attention. And I've been trying very, very hard to get rid of it by placing myself in situations where my feelings would become impossible. But it's not going away. It's haunting me more and more as I get older. Now the consequences of it are dire, at a time when it's causing me great pain in myself. And of course, what Bradley is talking about there is gender dysphoria. Is this feeling that he feels like he is female? Now, before we even really deal with the female side of things, the other thing that has to be brought into the picture here to be talked about is within the US Army, don't ask, don't tell. Now, if you don't know what don't ask, don't tell is, and I'm sure everybody does, basically don't ask, don't tell was this. Well, it started as there was a rule that if you were gay, you weren't allowed to serve in the military. And then it was Big Bill Clinton, Big Bill of Monica Lewinsky fame, that guy. He brought this rule in that said it's okay to maybe let gays slip in. Maybe slip in is not the best phrase I could have used, but it's okay to let gays enter. Why do I keep using terrible ways to say that? Not enter. It's maybe okay to let gays in the army if we have a policy called don't ask, don't tell. And a big part of that, really, or the main thrust of it, really, is that no one was allowed to ask you as a soldier, are you gay? And if someone did ask you, you weren't supposed to tell whether you were gay. So it was just like, it's it's just bizarre. I just don't think it works at all. It's this whole idea of like, you know someone's gay, but you're not allowed to talk about it, and they're not allowed to say about it, and it's just, it's weird. One weird bit of don't ask, don't tell is that if a superior officer in the army suspected you were gay, or suspected homosexual behaviour, they were allowed to investigate any behaviour that they deemed to be suspicious. And that was the only sort of like bit of it that was like the don't ask, don't tell sort of gets swept under the carpet, because if a superior officer suspected something, they were allowed to investigate it. So if two soldiers were, I don't know, in the room listening to a bit of Madonna and getting their little soldiers out for a bit of fun. and a superior in the army suspected that was what was going on and then got involved. I don't mean got involved with their little soldier. I just mean like got involved and knew what was happening. They could be kicked out of the army immediately. That was the worst description ever. And I'm kidding. I'm obviously kidding. Not about the don't ask, don't tell part. I'm not kidding about that. But I know that's not how gay men have sex. I'm being silly. I know they don't all have sex to Madonna. Don't be daft. Mitt Romney said this. Big Mitt had these words. When I first heard the phrase don't ask, don't tell, I thought it sounded silly. And I just dismissed it and I said, well, that can't possibly work. Well, I was wrong. It has worked. It's been in place now for a decade. The military says it's working and they don't want to change it. And they're the people closest to the front. We're in the middle of a conflict with Afghanistan and I do not want to change. Don't ask, don't tell. Mitt. Are you a gay man in the army? No, you're not. So, as much as I appreciate the sentiment that you're going, well, the military are saying it works. Well, I'm not really. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna trust your opinion on it. There was a lot of backlash against don't ask, don't tell, and people were saying, actually, no. Do you know what? If you want to be gay in the army, if you want to be a gay male, gay female, just be it. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's just stupid. What year are we living in? And then there was a US senator called Larry Craig. Slight sidestep here, but it does bring us back to don't ask, don't tell. Larry Craig was a US senator and he was arrested for, and I quote, lewd conduct in a men's restroom. Okay, fine. And this only added flames to the fire of the don't ask, don't tell situation. Because what happened was people jumped on the fact that a US senator, I mean, it's so stupid. A US senator who was miles away from the army and miles away from war basically did a George Michael in a bathroom, right? And tried to touch somebody's willy at a urinal, and it got brought back to don't ask, don't tell. Like, the two things just actually don't add up. Like, if you're thinking when I'm saying that sounds a bit confusing, that's because it is confusing. The two things don't make any sense. It just so happens that this senator, who was a bit high profile, he wasn't dead high profile, he was a wee bit high profile, got caught, say, like in, I don't know, like California, doing this. And he touched some guy's dick at a urinal, and this was to now reflect on the whole of don't ask, don't tell. It's so stupid. So statements were coming out like this. The national shudder of discomfort and queasiness associated with any introduction of homosexual eroticism into public men's rooms should make us more determined than ever to resist the injection of those lurid attitudes into the even more explosive situation of the US military. This is why don't ask, don't tell is the most important thing that the military has done. What? Even I'm confused. So basically, I think what they're trying to say from this is, if you took away don't ask, don't tell, what you then have is every gay soldier in the army trying to touch each other. No, shut up. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. Now, Bradley did not like this, and he talked about his sexuality. Bradley, he never talked about his gender dysphoria, but he would say, I'm gay. Now, in the face of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, this was really breaking all the rules. Bradley didn't give a fuck. Soldiers literally were like, do you not understand what Don't Ask, Don't Tell is? And Bradley was going, no, I do understand what it is. I just don't believe in it. I just don't think it should exist. I think it's stupid. I am a gay soldier. That's what I am. And he was really punished for that. So when he would ever dare to utter the words, I'm a gay soldier, he was just beaten black and blue by other soldiers trying to punish into him that Don't Ask, Don't Tell was there for a reason and that they didn't want to know it. So Bradley is in Iraq and he is struggling. He's got lots of different appointments with army therapists to talk about gender dysphoria. He's angry about the fact that Don't Ask, Don't Tell exists, and there becomes a discussion at one point where his superiors start saying, I don't think we should be letting Bradley Manning see sensitive information. I think it's a risk to let him see really explosive footage and let him see our most sensitive war logs, delicate, sensitive information. But we go back to what I talked earlier on about. There's very few people who could do Bradley's job because he was brilliant at it. He was great at accessing those files. He was excellent at decoding lots of different things. I don't know what an intelligence analyst really does in the army, but whatever they do, Bradley was fucking brilliant. However, being good at that job does not stop the fact that Bradley is slowly falling through the cracks, struggling with the fact that he feels female and the fact that the army at every turn just seem to be against him. And now it's about 2010 and the name Bradley Manning is about to become known to the entire world because of what Bradley does. Bradley has access to footage of soldiers bombing Afghanistan and Iraq, and there are hours and hours of footage. It goes on forever. And what he sees in this footage is he sees that actually there are US soldiers who are in helicopters flying over Iraq, Afghanistan, and they're treating it like a game. Like a game, they are dropping bombs into innocent towns. Bradley finds a video in which two US soldiers are laughing as they drop a bomb onto a town in Afghanistan where it's basically just civilians. No one is fighting. There's kids, there's reporters, there's innocent members of the public, and these two soldiers are laughing their head off as they drop bombs and destroy these people's lives. And Bradley is watching this footage and thinking, no, No fucking way am I watching this footage and letting this be okay. He's basically watching the army break law after law after law. He's seeing soldiers treat being able to drop bombs like it's a game. And he decides enough is enough. Bradley downloads from his computer 400,000 documents under the Iraq war log files and another 90,000 from the Afghanistan war log files. And these are the most damaging pieces of information for the US Army. These show killings that have happened in Iraq, in Afghanistan, where the US Army had no reason to be bombing towns. They had no reason to be shooting people dead. And it's all there, and it's all been filmed, or it's all there in a document. And Bradley has access to all of this information, and this is war crimes. This is basically a young man who's 24 years old and has discovered that the army he is part of, the US Army, have committed the most terrible, terrible atrocities. Innocent people have lost their lives because they've gone in there and they've bombed and they've shot people dead, and there was never any need for it. These were not people who were fighting the US. These were just innocent people who were killed, all in the name of being the big army, being the big US Army to go in there and obliterate towns and kill whole thousands of people who had no part in any kind of war. And Bradley has these files in his hands. And what he does is, with his downloaded files, he burns them onto a CD. And he labels that CD Lady Gaga. Brilliant. Excellent. And he puts it in his bag. And he now has that CD. He now has those hundreds of thousands of files on his possession wherever he goes. Now, he gets 2 weeks off from his time in Iraq, and he goes back to New York. He goes back to Tyler, the boyfriend that he met, and he's burdened. He's absolutely burdened by it. He says, look, I've got this information, and I think I'm going to leak this information. I think I'm going to have to let the world know that there are absolute atrocities being committed by our army, and our government are signing off on them, and they're saying that that's okay. Now Tyler says, okay, look, here's the thing, Bradley, you have to be very, very careful, because see, once you do this, there is no coming back. You cannot come back from this. If you're going to leak this, there's just no way that you're ever going to recover from it. Bradley knows that, and he's thinking, okay, where do I go? Where do I take this to? So he goes to, first of all, the Washington Post. And the Washington Post, they listen to what he has. They don't see the footage, but they listen to it, and they're not interested. They say, no, we don't want to carry this story. So he goes to the New York Times. New York Times, again, not interested. And then he thinks, okay, if none of the major news publications want this story, then I know where I'll go. I'll go to WikiLeaks. So what is WikiLeaks? Well, WikiLeaks was set up by a man called Julian Assange. And WikiLeaks was basically, set up by Julian Assange to expose the secrets of governments all over the world, not just America, but governments all around the world, armies all around the world, companies all around the world who have corrupt behaviour. Now, Bradley contacts WikiLeaks, and here is what's tricky. Whether or not, this is going to become important later, whether or not it's ever actually Julian Assange. Don't know why I say Assange like this. Assange. Whether or not it's actually Julian Assange that he speaks to, online or not, at this stage, we're not sure. But it will become important later. However, what happens is there is correspondence between Bradley and someone at WikiLeaks. Bradley says, I have all of these files, but I have an absolutely devastating piece of footage in which you will see 2 American soldiers bombing a town in Afghanistan, killing innocent people, including American reporters. They just drop these bombs and people die. Now, WikiLeaks obviously are interested. I mean, this is their business. This is what they do. Bradley says, I have another video and I've titled it General Massacre. And in this one you will see US soldiers dropping bombs on 183 innocent people, most of whom are children. They have nothing to do with the war. So this communication is going back between Bradley and WikiLeaks. And so, WikiLeaks say to Bradley, okay, give us the files and we will let the world see them. And that's exactly what happens. Bradley transfers the files to WikiLeaks, and instantly they are available online. They're available everywhere. Videos of the US Army committing horrific crimes, and it goes nuts. It goes bananas. These videos end up everywhere, and because of, the power of the internet and the speed at which we can get information, it's out there. It's everywhere. Now, there is obviously going to be huge panic, and it goes to the top level. It goes right up through the ranks of government, and it's reported to Obama, who is president at this point. There has been the most horrendous leak that we've ever had. This is the most terrible thing the US Army have ever had leaked. These videos that are now all over Twitter, all over Facebook, they're all over the internet, are the most damaging files for us in the army. Very quickly, very quickly, the FBI are brought in to the situation, and with amazing speed, and I mean amazing speed, they very quickly track down the root, the source of the leak, and they discover that it was Bradley Manning who had leaked these. And they discover the WikiLeaks contact. It really does not take them very long to do this. Now, when they do that, does Bradley deny that he was the person who gave these files to WikiLeaks? No, does he fuck. He goes, yeah, it was me. And he says this. He says, I'm just telling the truth. Do to me what you will. Call me a whistleblower, call me a traitor, call me the fucking enemy of America. Do to me whatever you want, but I have told the truth. Bradley Manning is arrested by army officers, and the series of charges against him, they begin to mount. The name Bradley Manning, it reaches the four corners of the world, and he's put in prison. He's put in prison as a traitor of America. And now, Bradley Manning is going to become one of the most famous and the most disgusting examples of how a human being can be treated that we've ever known. And so ends part 2 of The Truth Will Set You Free.